Did I leave the oven on? Is he ever going to call me? What am I going to say to my boss during our important meeting tomorrow? Does she ever even think about me? Why did I say something so stupid? I know you have thought at least one of these things to the point of driving yourself crazy. And maybe you've tried to just stop thinking. Has it worked? Overthinking can lead to anxiety, stress, and frustration. And in this episode, I'll be sharing tips on how to stop overthinking to improve your mental health. Welcome to Calmly Coping. I'm your host, Tati Garcia. I'm a licensed therapist and a high-functioning anxiety coach. Calmly Coping is the podcast for people who struggle with anxiety and high-functioning anxiety. Each Wednesday, you'll hear informative episodes with actionable tips about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy so you can live a calm and balanced life. Let's get started. This is episode number 52, How to Stop Overthinking and Start Relaxing. Welcome back, and welcome if you are a first-time listener. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our ability to think about things that are not directly in front of our faces is actually incredible. But it can be harmful when you're constantly worrying, planning, predicting the future, rehashing the past, and stuck in your head. One of the things that sets us humans apart from other animals is our ability to think about complex things. And because of this, we're able to plan and project into the future, into the past, and analyze and solve problems. These are excellent and extremely helpful tools that are available to us. So these methods of thinking are what have allowed us to be creative, invent new technology, and learn more about the world around us, just to name a few things. But is it ever possible to think too much? Can thinking ever become something that is more harmful than helpful? And is it possible to learn how to stop overthinking and relax? I'm sure if you're here, you'd probably agree that it is totally possible to be in that place of overthinking, and I'm hoping to help you to understand more about why you overthink and what you can do about it so that you can feel more calm and present in your life. So first, let's take a look at the brain. So the brain has evolved over time to become more complex. The oldest part of the brain, which is the brainstem and otherwise known as the reptilian brain, is responsible for the basic functions of keeping us alive. So these functions include breathing, heart rate, body temperature, and balance, just to name a few. So these are the things that you have no awareness of, but they're constantly happening in the background. Now let's skip to the most evolved portion of the brain in humans. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for complex thinking. This includes decision-making, inhibitory control. So this is when you stop yourself from doing something that you realize like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to say that. That's not appropriate, or anything else. And abstract thought. So these are the aspects of human behavior that allow us to reflect upon the world around us, to think before we act, and to plan for the future. So how much is too much thinking? It's probably too much if you are interested in listening to this episode, because maybe it's gotten to the point where you live your life in your head more than you do in the present. The worrying, the planning, the reflecting, the problem solving, doesn't it start to get exhausting? I just want to let you know that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you for overthinking. It's something that everybody has experienced at one time or another. But here are some signs to help you understand when overthinking can become troublesome. Are you spending most of your day thinking about a moment other than right now? Do you feel the need to plan to an obsessive amount where it gets to the point that it prevents you from getting started? Do you come up with the worst case scenario predictions for future events or explanations for past events? Do you try to solve problems in your head that don't have a solution? Do you think about every last possibility when it comes to something you're struggling with, so much so that it gets to the point where you are consumed with thought and not taking action? I want you to stop and take a deep breath in through your nose and sigh out through your mouth. Were you starting to feel anxious just listening to those scenarios? Simply put, thinking too much about the future results in anxiety, and thinking too much about the past can result in depression. And studies show when people are focused on and thinking about the present moment that they feel happier as a result. So here's the thing. There are times when it's necessary to take things slow and think long and deep about an important decision in your life. This is when planning, writing a list of pros and cons, and thinking about possible consequences are important when they lead to action. When thinking is incessant, pointless, and does not change what you do, how you do it, or the world around you, then it is overthinking. And if you want to get a free cheat sheet to help you get all of the points that I'm identifying in this podcast episode, so you can identify your overthinking in a condensed, easy to digest PDF, plus journal prompts to help you stop overthinking, then you can download my free overthinking guide at calmlycoping.com/overthinking. So here are some examples of the types of overthinking. Maybe it's constant and obsessive planning, predicting the future, replaying the past, worrying, overanalyzing things, distracting yourself, avoiding things, problem solving, and these are just a few examples. So maybe you've determined by now that you tend to overthink things and you want to learn how to stop. So here are a few suggestions that's going to help you tame the beast that is your nonstop thinking. First tip is to take action. So sometimes overthinking results from an event that's going to happen in the future or that you've been avoiding. Take as much action as you can when it comes to this situation. So maybe that includes taking the first steps that you have been avoiding or procrastinating, or maybe it includes coming up with a plan. Take purposeful action when you can to stop the wheels from turning in your head. So just take that first step and see if that changes your thinking and see if that changes how you feel. My next tip is to write it down. So you'd be surprised at how effective putting the thoughts that are on repeat in your head down on paper can be. I want you to test it out, write down what you're thinking, and use this as a brain dump to get everything down on paper, and then write down some positive self-talk, telling yourself to let go of what you don't have control over. This can be really helpful. And I actually do this a lot in my journaling. I'll write down what's coming up for me, and then at the end, I'll write an additional statement or two, kind of pep talking myself and saying, all right, let this go. You don't have control over it. You're doing your best, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of being my own personal cheerleader in a way and giving myself those statements that might be helpful for me to hear from a friend or somebody else. And this is an example of that self-compassion that you can speak to yourself in a kind way so that it can help to influence how you're feeling and release some of that stress and anxiety. My next tip is to talk it out. So maybe you want to reach out to a friend or a family member who you know has your best interests in mind, yet they can also be upfront and honest with you. Let it all out and get their feedback. And it can be helpful to get another person's perspective, especially because we're usually blind to important things when it comes to a personal situation. So this can be really helpful. My next tip is to make a list of pros and cons. It is so cliche, yet it can really be incredibly helpful when making a difficult decision or dealing with a difficult situation. So I want you to take a step back and think about things objectively, then make a list with the positive and the negative aspects. Seeing everything down on paper and organized in this way can help you to look at things differently and take action instead of obsessing. My next tip is to meditate or practice mindfulness. Meditation can be an opportunity to focus your mind and watch thoughts float by without attaching to them. And when practiced regularly, meditation can help you notice when you start to get caught up in overthinking and help you refocus on the present moment. Meditating literally changes your brain for the better, and it can be really powerful. So just start with 5 to 10 minutes a day doing a guided meditation or just setting a timer. And in the long term, it's really going to help. And my next tip is to practice acceptance. If there's no decision to be made or nothing you can do about it now, then it's important to practice acceptance. Simply telling yourself to accept the fact that there is nothing more that can be done or that you don't have control over the situation can help you stop or at least slow down the unending cycle of thought. Letting go and practicing acceptance can be difficult, but it can be extremely effective. And so this is just as simple as letting yourself know, I have no control over this and I choose to focus on what I can control. So I want you to take things one step at a time and try implementing one of these tips today, depending on which one resonated with you the most. We all get caught up in moments of indecision, worrying, obsessive planning, and other types of overthinking. And it can feel even worse when you're stressed out or struggling with anxiety. Don't beat yourself up over it. Take things slow and remind yourself that thinking will not change the world around you and it won't solve all your problems. And I hope these tips were helpful. If you're interested in diving deeper and getting one-to-one support to help you address your overthinking so that you can overcome your blocks and maximize your potential, then you can learn more about working with me at calmlycoping.com/coaching. If you found this podcast episode informative, then please leave me a review on iTunes letting me know your thoughts. And while you wait for next week's episode, I have other episodes about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and until next time, be calm. Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please share this episode with a friend, and please subscribe and leave me a review on iTunes. Also, remember to check me out online at calmlycoping.com and connect with me on Instagram at TatianaGLPC. All content here is for informational purposes only. This content does not replace the professional judgment of your own mental health provider. Please consult a licensed mental health professional for all individual questions and issues. Till next time, I'm Tati, and this has been Calmly Coping.